It's January the 1st, which means Happy New Year to you guys out there. Hopefully this is the first place you came to for some YouTube content, right? Looking for Tokyo About 23, all 1700s of my subscribers just flying to the internet, flying to YouTube because they want to see what Tokyo About is going to say on January the 1st. Or you're all out there visiting family and friends, even if it's by Zoom or whatever. But anyway, I'm still churning out the content. Yesterday I threw together a video which I hadn't planned just as a sort of New Year's message. But today we're back to that sneaker content, and I'm bringing you a shoe, a Nike Air Max 90, and it's like the M2Z2 or something like that. I can't even remember what that means. I don't even know what that means. But it's a great looking shoe. It continues the Nike move to zero, which is all about recycling, repurposing, taking offcuts and firing them back into shoes and stuff like that. Today it's actually the start of a two-part little couple of videos that I'm doing. This one is about the Air Max 90, and then tomorrow there's two blazers that follow exactly the same kind of color scheme and sort of narrative as this shoe. So let's get into this. Let's talk about this shoe, this recycled, repurposed Air Max 90. There's a couple of things to look at. There are two main recycled elements on the shoe. What are they? Where are the two main recycled elements? Because there's a lot in the move to zero, a lot of different ways to get that recycling into shoes, and two of them make it into this Air Max 90. What are they? We'll find out in today's video. And also there's a part of this shoe that to me, it just looks like a suit. I'm not kidding. As soon as I saw it, I was like, man, if that was a suit, that would be a very cool kind of power suit that you could see like a banker on Wall Street wearing or something like that. So which part of the shoe reminded me of a suit? And also, there's a tiny little question that really just threw me. And maybe you can answer this before we get to this in this video. But the question is there any branding on the heel? Odd little question. Find out about that in today's video. So without further ado, let's get into this and take a look at the Air Max 90 M2Z2 Electric Green. This is the Tokyo About 23 Sneaker channel. Tokyo About 23 Sneaker channel. It's my nature of my nature meeting design. Every single day, including January the 1st, I bring you content from Tokyo, Japan about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And today, it's all about a shoe coming on January the 7th. Little bit close for me. This is January the 1st that this video will go up, and we're talking about a shoe coming on January the 7th. For me, that's a little close. I don't like to be a week ahead of the drop dates. I like to be about 10 days to 2 weeks ahead. But it's the new year, and things are running a little bit strange as we kind of transition from 2020 into 2021. But what isn't changing is that I'm trying to do the details about the shoe first and then keep all the talk later. So let's dive straight into the shoe and look at some detailing on there. Question number one: where are the two main areas of recycling on the shoe? We talked about the move to zero, which is a huge Nike initiative across many different brands. Started right here with the Space Hippies, which is a very heavily recycled shoe across every element of that shoe, upper, midsole, outsole, the whole thing. Whereas today's shoe, if you come back to that Air Max 90, it's actually just select bits on it that are recycled. And there's two little areas in particular we're talking about that have two different kinds of recycling. So part number one that we're talking about, I'm going to go with the outsole first. Actually, I was going to go somewhere else, but I've changed my mind. I'm going to go to the outsole first, and you have a look at that. What an outsole. This thing is absolutely magnificent. It does not look like an Air Max 90 outsole at all because of that grind rubber. What they do is they take offcuts of rubber and they regenerate it into more rubber that they can put onto the outsoles of shoes. Now, in today's video, it's very obvious. You can see that rubber sort of embedded in there, so the recycle element is jumping out at you. Tomorrow, when we look at the blazers, it's not so obvious on the outsoles, but we'll keep that for tomorrow's video. So number one, it's the regrind. They call it grind rubber, and they say regrind rubber, where they've taken offcuts of rubber. You've cut out an outsole for this shoe, but you've cut it out of something, and the bit that's left over, let's repurpose that, regenerate it into rubber and put it onto a shoe, which is one of the elements of this move to zero. So part one of this question, what are the two parts of recycling on the shoe? That's the main point of that. Now the second part is actually up higher. Now we're going to go up to the lateral swoosh first, because this is where you see the example of what I'm talking about, and it's to do with the materials being recycled. Now there's a particular way they call it upcycling waste products, which I thought was an interesting way of calling it upcycling. Can't say I've ever heard that, but basically waste products, taking offcuts, taking other pieces of material that would have, gone to waste or gone to landfills or whatever, and saying, you know what, let's recycle that, upcycle that into something else and repurpose it and reuse it. So we're looking at that on the swoosh, but that actual material is used in 3 other places, and the third of those places we'll get to, and that's where we'll talk about the branding on the heels. So first things first, we're on the lateral side looking at that swoosh, and you can see that it's a sort of it's got that recycle feel about it and that fabric feel about it. Interesting, if we go to the medial side, you can see a black swoosh on there and no recycled material on there. I'm not entirely sure why they didn't go with the same swoosh on the medial and that lateral side. And again, in tomorrow's video about the blazers, you'll see that again, that sort of one side recycled swoosh on one side standard swoosh, which you've got on these guys. And then we go up to the tongues to see the second of the 3 places where you've got the upcycled materials. The interesting point on here is there's clearly tongue branding on there, Nike branding embedded in there on that recycled materials. The reason that's interesting is because we'll go around to the heel and have a look at this. And that was my question to you guys, was, is there branding on the heel? Now, any which way I look at this picture, there is not. You can see very clearly that standard Nike Air Max 90 branding panel. It's almost like hexagonal, like an elongated hexagon or something like that, up there on the heel. And I just can't see anything except for the upcycled materials that we've already seen on the swoosh and the tongue. But I might be wrong. I don't want to be like 100%. I'm going to go 99.9%. There isn't any branding on this, but that 0.1% I'll reserve for somebody to tell me in the comments down below if I've misread this picture and I'm not seeing it right. But to me, there is no branding on the heel of these guys, which is kind of unique. The branding panel on the back of Air Max 90s is a very specific piece of detail on that shoe, and the fact it has nothing on it on these guys is kind of big. I've talked before about the undefeated Air Max 90s and how they switched out the standard Nike branding on the back for the 5 tally mark branding of undefeated, which I thought was very, very cool. And it's also cool in what they've done here by not putting any branding on it to give it that extra sort of like surprising feel to the shoe. But anyway, I don't see any branding on the back, but that's the third of the 3 places where they've upcycled the materials and recycled materials and got them into the shoe. There are other ways to recycle at Nike and the move to zero, like fly wire being recycled in certain ways, uppers being recycled in certain ways, but that's not what they've gone for today. What they've gone for is the swoosh, the tongue and the heel branding in one with the upcycled materials, and then 2, the outsole in that grind rubber recycle. So there's your 2 main elements of recycling on the shoe. But there are more hits and more details on this, and I want to answer that other question, which is which part of this shoe looks like a suit. And what I'm talking about is bling, there's the toe on these guys. And that square pattern, that sort of, it's almost like pinstripe square pattern. I hope it's showing up on the green screen well enough for you guys to see what I'm talking about here. But I just totally, as soon as I saw that, I thought, man, that looks like a suit. It feels like a suit, even if the rest of the shoe doesn't have that kind of formal feel to it. For example, if we pan back ever so slightly from that toe, you get to the lowest of all the eyelets on there, and you see it's very unusual to see this on an Air Max 90, but that little panel there, which is usually rubber, is actually translucent electric green, and usually that isn't translucent at all, but it's a very cool feature, but it's not at all formal. So beside that kind of suit feel of the toe, you've got that translucent eyelet panel right at the bottom of the lacing system. And then if we travel past that and past the swoosh to the branding lateral side panel, you'll see that on there, which is grey on black branding. And then not too far from that, if you go up from that, you'll see some, I want to say oversized stitching, but I don't know how oversized it is. It might just be because it's electric green that it appears oversized, but you see that kind of jagged line that you normally wouldn't see in this particular place. But the black upper with the electric green stitch that runs all the way around the back of the shoe, and hopefully I'm showing you on one side and I'll flip it to the other side of the shoe so you can see that it's run right across the heel and around to the back and then onto the other side of the shoe, and it gives a really important point of definition to really carry that, what otherwise would be a very dark black and grey element of the shoe. You've got a little hit of electric green in there to give it a little bit more pop. And speaking of pop, let's drop down to the air unit, and that classic sort of, it looks like an arrowhead air unit, or we've got the air unit and then wrap around on that again in electric green. Then you come a little bit forward from that to the Foot Midsole, and you can see I'm calling it sail. They called it something like light bone or something in the materials that I read about this shoe, but I'm going to call it sail. But it's a good choice. If they'd gone with white, it would have been too much. This sort of off-white feel to to that midsole in the front there actually works really well with the outsole and recycled materials down below, and then the upper in that black. The greys are the recycled materials, and then the electric green. So that pretty much finishes up the shoe. Back out to look at the whole shoe. Really good start to the year. It's a great shoe to bring you on January the 1st for January the 7th drop. This being a shoe that spent all of 2020 in its 30th anniversary year, and then here we are right at the start of 2021, and they're still bringing some really strong shoes in the Air Max 90 line. So glad to see that 30th anniversary year is continuing on with the positivity into 2021, which hopefully will be spread far and wide as we try and be more positive about the outlook on everything, not just sneakers, in the year ahead. But that's about it from me today. I'm pretty much done with this video. Hopefully you guys are doing all right out there, and the new year's kicked off pretty well for you. And I'm shooting this video on the New Year's Eve. So it hasn't yet turned to 2021, but hopefully 2021 has started well for me and started well for you too. But you know what has just continued. It hasn't started, it's continued as it has done for something like 750 consecutive days, non-stop daily content on YouTube from my good self. So because of that, I get to say at the end of every single video that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.